Poonam Birde. China's persecution of Uyghur Muslims is an open secret. It is an ethnic minority that lives prominently in the Xinjiang province in China. They are at the receiving end of arbitrary detention. We've seen torture stories coming in of sexual assault, forced sterilizations. We've heard those stories coming to the fore from that region for years together. Report after report by several world bodies, including the United Nations and other international ones, have thrown light on these excesses by the Chinese administration. But nothing changes, unfortunately, for those millions of Uyghurs in China, specifically in the Xinjiang province. There is a new report now that has come to the fore, and this is by the Human Rights Watch that has put the spotlight back on the issue. They have now alleged that China's abuses against the community, against the Muslim community, go much beyond just the Xinjiang province. They're also now naming two other provinces, the Gansu province and the Ningxia province. These two account for the highest number of Muslims outside of the Xinjiang province, and the Communist Party now seems to be putting their plan of sinicizing the country in action in those two provinces. Citing satellite images, this report has now thrown light on human rights, on the human rights excesses that we have seen. We've also had the Chinese authorities who've allegedly demolished, closed down or decommissioned several places of worship of the Muslim community or mosques. This is all a part of the government's efforts to restrict the practice of Islam in the country in these two provinces. This is what this U.S. body has now alleged in its report. Remember, back in 2020, there was a report that came to the fore from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. The administration was then blamed for damaging and destroying 2/3 of the mosques in the Xinjiang province. History seems to be repeating itself. So let me first take you through what the highlights of this new report are. These are the allegations that the Human Rights Watch has now made. One, that the Chinese administration is destroying, closing and repurposing these mosques. Charge 2 is that systematic effort is there to curb the practice of Islam by the Chinese administration. The other charge that is coming to the fore is that of shutting off mosques in the Ningxia province and the Gansu province to other provinces other than Xinjiang, where we're seeing these excesses. Another allegation that has been red flagged now by this US body is that the Islamic features like domes or minarets on top of these mosques, they have now been taken down. In Xinjiang, 2/3 of the mosques have also been destroyed, is what this report comes out and says. Now, in one of the Muslim majority villages in the autonomous region of this particular place, 3 of the 6 mosques have been destroyed. They've been stripped off their domes, minarets, as far as the Human Rights Watch report goes. The rest have had their main prayer halls destroyed as well. So let's take a look at what exactly these cities are and how they have changed over a period of time. This is what it looked like in 2009. This is what it looks like in 2019. The 852 mosques existed as far as the Chungwei city is concerned. In 2009, 10 years later, cut across, 214 mosques have been altered, 58 mosques have been consolidated, 37 unregistered venues have been banned. Now, the Chinese administration says that this is all as per the law. Well, the jury is out on that. Let's take a look at some of the other provinces where similar scenes are being witnessed. Let's take a look at this particular province. From 2009 to 2019, what has changed? There were 69 mosques in 2009 in this particular city. In 2019, 6 mosques have been combined. There has been a 30% drop in religious activities of the minorities that stayed there. Cut across to the next province as far as the Gansu province is concerned, and here's what statistics have revealed. These are what news reports have confirmed. It also finds mention in the report of the Human Rights Watch. The Gansu province, there were 10 mosques that were reduced and combined over a period of time by the Chinese administration. The Islamic architectural features have been altered in at least 31 of these mosques, is what has now been recorded. Cut across to another county in one of these provinces in China, and this is what has happened there. There's registration of 12 mosques that has been cancelled by the Chinese administration. 5 mosques have been closed down as well. The action continues. At least 5 have been consolidated or improved, is what the Chinese administration says. The people living there, of course, differ from this particular definition of what has happened to their places of worship. Now, some residents in these regions have publicly opposed the Sinicization policy, but their resistance has so far been futile. Over the years, there have been many who have been jailed, they've been detained, especially after clashes broke out with authorities. There have been closures or demolitions of these mosques as well. Let's take a look at some of those numbers and the reality as far as Uyghur Muslims are concerned. Let's take a look at what exactly has been happening as far as the Xinjiang province is concerned. Over 1,200 Uyghur camps have been noted of in the Xinjiang province. This is the reality that has been gotten to the fore multiple times by multiple international bodies. There are camps that are designed to erase ethno-religious identities, is what several of these UN reports have also pointed out. Uyghur Muslims have spoken of being detained without trial. They've spoken of their family members being picked off in the middle of the night, taken into these camps, re-education camps as they are called, and then that is where the abuse begins. 1 million plus Uyghurs have been imprisoned. This is as per a 2019 US report. The laws on minority rights are completely weak, is something that another UN report has pointed out. This report came out just last year in 2022. Now, here's where the twist lies. The Xi administration, while suppresses human rights in the Muslim community in their own country, they come out and preach to the world about the cause, about the Palestinian cause, to talk of in the recent scenario. They, in fact, hosted ministers from Saudi Arabia, from Egypt, from Jordan, the Palestinian Authority, and even Indonesia just 2 days ago. Leaders from the Islamic nations had a message for Xi Jinping. They wanted him to play peacemaker in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Here's how Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud told the media about what their expectations were during this particular meeting and what their expectations were from Xi Jinping as far as this entire meeting went. Well, it was about the UNSC, but they also did speak of the ongoing conflict and how the Palestinian cause must be upheld. This is what the Saudi foreign minister had to tell the Chinese when he met them. We must immediately stop the fighting and we have to ensure that the killings are stopped. Must immediately deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza is also something that was told to them. We must resolve the crisis, end war that is being waged against Gaza, was the message that came in from Saudi Arabia. Let's take a look at what the Egyptian foreign minister had to say during that particular meeting. Looking forward to stronger role from powers like China was the message that came to the fore from the Egyptian foreign minister. We need to stop the attacks against the Palestinians in Gaza was also what they came out and said. They then went on to say that major nations have given cover to current Israeli attacks, and that is something that must be called out, was the message. Now, China also came out and backed this cause. China has a history of backing the Palestinian cause. They also came out and denounced Israel over what they call as occupation of the Gaza Strip, but not one word as far as the October 7th attack by Hamas is concerned. Remember, that attack killed 1,200 people. Fighting for the Palestinian cause, China says. The Chinese foreign minister had this to say. China is a good friend and a brother of Arab and Islamic nations, is what the Chinese foreign minister Wang Yi had to say. He said that we are safeguarding rights and interests of Arab and Islamic nations. Have firmly supported the just cause of the Palestinian people. This is the historical stance that China has taken. This is what the Chinese foreign minister had to say while he was hosting foreign ministers of the other countries. Now, the double speak here is quite clear, many would say. The Chinese administration has repeatedly denied allegations of crimes against the Uyghurs in their own country. Even though United Nations has said that these are crimes against humanity, China has come out and said that this is the lie of the century. Perhaps the Chinese can't see the irony of it all, many would say, but the world definitely can.
Hello, Moto.
Let's open this up to the panelists and join me on this debate. On the right stand, Abdul Hakim Idris, Executive Director of the Center for Uyghur Studies, joins me. Dr. Tara Karta, Distinguished Fellow of the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies, also here. And International and Independent China Strategist, Dr. Andrew K.P. Long, also joining us here on this broadcast. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking with us and joining us here on this broadcast. I would like to begin by asking Mr. Idris, you've seen firsthand, heard narratives firsthand of what the reality in Xinjiang is. The new report that comes out goes on to talk about history repeating itself in two other provinces where also we see the maximum number of Muslim residents.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. In those times, the hypocrisy is the mainstream. As you know, we are talking about the CCP's Chinese Communist Party's destruction of thousands of mosques. But I want to give a highlight on the human cost. You know, when the Chinese Communist regime, Communist Party, launched the war on Islam, 2018, murdered Imam Muhammad Saleh, who is translated the Quran to Uyghur language with the permission of China. The Communist Party imprisoned him, tortured him, murdered him in concentration camp. 82 years old are religious scholars. Many thousands imams and scholars are disappeared, landed in this concentration camps, murdered and tortured. We are talking over 1 million children they are raising in atheistic system, not in Uyghur language, but in pan-Chinese communistic ideology. And over 3 million people in concentration camps. You know what their crime is? Practicing normal activities of Islam, saying Salam Alaikum, going to mosque, praying, and that was their crime. And the millions and millions landed in Chinese prisons. So this is the human cost. Today, we are seeing the destruction and demolishing the mosques in Ningxia, Gansu, Kunming around China. But we have to put highlights how many people, because of China's war and Sinicization of Islam, suffering. We can see almost, you know, the 6-7 years, we can count the mosques what China demolished. At least over 16,000 mosques demolished in East Turkestan. And the 5,000 mosques demolished or disappeared around China. While China is demolishing mosques, destroying the mosques, putting scholars and murdering them, and at the same times to be helpful to rescue other Muslims. As a Uyghur Muslim, I don't believe it, I don't buy it.
And it's interesting that the world is buying it as well, or at least the Arab nations clearly are, because their hypocrisy or their complicity in all of this is also something that we will be speaking of. But I want to get in Dr. Leong in on this as well. The facts that Mr. Idris stated, the amount of mosques that have been raised, there are reports after reports that come out. Is this a systematic effort as part of the CCP's strategy of Sinicization of all religions? Is this what they're doing?
First of all, the comparison of China policy on Xinjiang with what's happening over Gaza is completely over the top, because no comparison at all. Because in the case of Xinjiang, it's a question of rising separatism. And then the data quoted in the report dated back a number of years ago, when separatism were rearing its ugly head, and so there were hence this tremendous crackdown. But now the situation is highly stabilized, and there are many tourists flocking to Xinjiang, in both for Chinese nationals from various provinces and even foreigners. Now, the fact remains that this, over the past so many years, the livelihood of the Xinjiang people have miraculously improved according to United Nations metrics. both in life expectancy and economy. And as far as mosques are concerned, in spite of the removal or destruction of some mosques because they were hotbeds of terrorism, special targets, but the fact remains there are 25,000 mosques in Xinjiang. On a per capita basis, it's one mosque for about 57 people. It's the highest compared with any Islamic countries. And of course, if you look at the renminbi, the banknote, the Xinjiang language features there all these years since the founding of the People's Republic of China. So the Xinjiang language, the Xinjiang culture is highly preserved because it's the policy of the Chinese Communist Party that is a coexistence between different ethnic groups. China is a unique country with 58 different ethnic groups. And most of these, with the exception of the Xinjiang and perhaps Tibet, also live in great harmony. So if you look at the statistics, there are two sides of the story, but the comparisons, what's happening over Gaza is really ridiculous, over the tops.
But sir, I want to ask you, you're talking about there being enough number of mosques as far as at least the Xinjiang province is concerned. But let's talk about the other two provinces that this report has been speaking of. There's also a 2018 reference to what was referred as the Xinjiang papers. It was the first known reference, perhaps a leaked paper that spoke of mosque consolidation as far as that particular province and the rest of China is concerned, where they spoke of how it was a CCP's strategy to ensure that more mosques were not built, that the overall number of mosques had to be compressed. Would you deny that there was no such internal document that eventually was leaked out?
Sorry, are you asking me?
Yes, Dr. Leong.
Okay, well, naturally the situation in Xinjiang is not confined to itself because there are separatists and in fact extremist terrorist groups spreading to other provinces where the Muslims were residing or living in Jiangsu and so on and so forth. Again, the report quoted data a number of years back, but the situation is hugely improved to the extent that a number of the restrictions, a number of the so-called camps or education camps have been closed and welcoming tourists. Previously, I mean, all these provinces, because of the rising separatism, were closed to tourists even for Chinese nationals. But now, even I wanted to go to Xinjiang, and I found it very difficult to even book a tour because there are so many tourists going to Xinjiang just to see the situation on the ground.
I have to respond to this allegation. I have to respond.
Sure, sir, go ahead.
Your guest even repeating the Chinese Communist Party's narrative, but he is not aware of Chinese Communist policies. Sinicization of Islam, changing zikr in the masjid, demolition cemeteries, and the banning and the Islamic activities. As a Uyghurs, we cannot have a beard like mine, you know. We cannot have a very hijab. We cannot educate our children with our religions or our language. And I think he is not aware of the Chinese Communist policy. Recent Xi Jinping's visit in August to Urumqi, what he said, make a compatible Islamic religion with Confucius and the communism. They already changed the Quran and the Bible. I think he is not aware of the Chinese Communist policy. You should learn your Communist Party's policy and then repeat your lies, I think.
Dr. Leong and Mr. Idris, do stay on with us. Tara Karta also joining us here on this broadcast.
All I could say is that please visit Xinjiang yourself. Rather than believing all the rhetoric and in reports quoting out-of-date data, and the situation on the ground is very, very different now. And of course, there was a period of rising separatism, as in the case of other countries having to face separatism, even in India.
Authorities, but then isolation, laws. You read it. You have to read your own communistic ideology and then make a narrative. You know, you are propaganda for the Communist Party, but you are repeating the lies. You cannot make 100%. You know, the Chinese Communist Party saying Sinization of Islam. What's mean that? Can you explain me that Sinization of Islam? What to do with the separatism, terrorism? Nothing to do. You cannot put millions of people in concentration camps, torturing them, rape them, murdering them, and forcing them in working as a slave in the force camp. You cannot do it. Around the world, every country has some problem with terrorism, but nobody put millions of people in concentration camp and turned the concentration camp into prisons. That transporting the millions of Uyghur outside so-called Xinjiang, inner China. They are letting them work as a slave. This is the reality. I'm not repeating some data or not things. I'm studying Communist Party's ideology, resolution, and I'm talking it. But you are not, I think.
Well, I don't know what you study, but let's not debate about, because you don't know my study, I don't know yours, but the fact remains that the Xinjiang economy has increased 37 times over 70 years, and it's growing on an average rate of 3.5%. Who gives you this data?
Who gives you the data? This data, where did you get this data? This data get from Communist Chinese Party, and the Chinese Communist Party is the judge, is the persecutor, and the pulling them people in the concentration camp, and at the same time they're talking truth. The Chinese Communist Party is the mass murder in human history. More than 70 million Chinese people died because of the Chinese Communist Party's lies and the politics.
I want to get in Dr. Tarakarta in as well. Gentlemen, do stay on with me. I want to get in the neutral party. Dr. Tarakarta, we've heard both sides. We've seen these reports that come in year after year. There's really not much that can be done apart from these reports coming out and highlighting, unfortunately. But what do you think explains the kind of support that the Arab world has for China despite what is happening? Even as far as the Uyghur Muslims issue is concerned, at least 6 countries in the Arab world have come out and backed China on this issue. They've also detained several of these people and sent them back to China.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, in fact, I think the Saudi prince had been in China a couple of years ago, where he sort of supported them entirely and told that we support you against terrorism. I mean, where the platform of support is that any activity against terrorism, we are supporting that. Saudi Arabia has deported Uyghurs, and so has Pakistan. Pakistan has deported any Uyghur it can find. It has and sent them back. These are things which happen. And I just want to add this here, which once I found, which was very almost strange, was the fact that General Musharraf was sent to Beijing, and from Beijing to Xinjiang, where he told the Muslims that you must work with Beijing. So that is the extent of support which Muslim nations are giving China. Why they are giving it to them? Well, that's obvious. That's a huge economy. China supports them. And there is a targeted pressure on all of these countries, not just Muslim countries, or most countries, to get Uyghurs out of the way. Who talks about them? I mean, let's not just pull up only the Muslim countries. When the world is talking about Palestine, they're talking briefly about Afghanistan. Who talks about the Uyghurs? So there is a very strong hypocrisy across the world. It's not just the Muslim countries, it's everywhere. No one wants to speak up for them. And recently, by the way, the World Uyghur Congress, which is, as far as we're concerned, is the most representative body of the Uyghurs, have condemned the attack by Hamas. Yes. So they are not terrorists. These are people with the right to live in their countries peacefully. And on the other side of it, I'm just wondering, when all these states are going to China to say, be the mediator in Palestine, whether the Palestinians will accept them. Because the Palestinian people are well aware of the atrocities against the Uyghurs, and I have a very strong feeling, regardless of what the Palestinian Authority says, and they are supportive of China, he was there in June. I doubt that the Palestinians will want China as a mediator.
Absolutely, and like you pointed out, it's the hypocrisy of the Western powers as well, which brings me to what the UN had said a couple of years ago. In 2018, if I'm not mistaken, there was this report that came out that spoke about crimes of humanity, crimes against humanity that were taking place in China, in the Xinjiang province. But apart from those reports coming out, what exactly happens? Because even if it were to get to a vote as far as the UN Human Rights Council is concerned, you cannot compel China to do anything about it. None of these reports are binding.
Yeah, in fact, well, nothing of the UN is binding, right? I mean, you just had a resolution on Palestine which is non-binding. So that's how the UN works. I do appreciate the point made by Dr. Andrew that, things have changed, that the place has opened up. But, well, one would like to see them not put a far less pressure on these people, and definitely 16,000 mosques raised down. That is a huge number. I mean, and a word of, I won't say advice. I wouldn't dare advise such a large power. But if you have 18 million Muslims, that was the count in 2020. I don't know what the count is now. You can't suppress these people. So there is, it seems to be rather a dangerous and very non-advisable thing to do to wipe out mosques, change the architecture and try and change people who just want to live peacefully.
Dr. Leong, things may have changed, but the reality, the history cannot be ignored. Would you at least accept that? Or are you saying what's being quoted of what happens or happened in Xinjiang is far from reality? As China has always been saying. China, in fact, came out and said that this is the lie of the century.
Well, I think that let's look at how China dealt with the separatism and terrorism problems in Xinjiang. Rather than what's happening over Gaza, China introduced a very strong and stringent, if you like, education program, and trying to integrate the Xinjiang people with the Han culture, so that the two people can live in peace. And in fact, that there are lots of Han Chinese in Xinjiang living happily together with the Xinjiang people. As I said, right from the very start, the Communist Party respects and respects now the Xinjiang culture. And
Sure.
just look at the renminbi. If you have a renminbi note, go and have a look at it. Right from the start, the Xinjiang Uyghur language was printed on the renminbi, and it's even now, along with the Tibetan language and the Han language. So China has always been respecting the Xinjiang
Sure.
culture and diversity. And in fact, it is a tenet of the Chinese Communist Party that the Han Chinese are living, is mandated to live in harmony with all these 56 ethnic groups, and
Sure.
most of them are living in great peace. And
Sure, and that's what the Chinese administration has also been pointing to. But many, like Mr. Idris, I'm sure are not buying that argument, which is also why every few years we see different organizations come up with reports like we just had the Human Rights Watch. Unfortunately, I'm completely out of time. I have to leave it at that. I thank you all for joining us here on this broadcast.
One thing you can add the not just the Uyghurs, Tibetan, Mongolian, Hong Konger, Chinese Christian, and the Muslim to the list, or of them separatists, terrorists, radicalized, and your guests, talk about this and repeat the CCP's propaganda narrative. Thank you.
Sure.
Go and visit Hong Kong, where I am.
Sure, and this debate would continue. I would love to continue this because this is something that we have often spoken of. Unfortunately, this is exactly what happens. We have a report that comes out, we have debates like this that happen, but there's very little, like Mr. Idris was pointing out, that changes unfortunately for them. China, of course, continues to deny it, but we still have these issues that come up every once in a while. What is the long-term solution? What can make life better for all of these people, not just now in the Xinjiang province, but in the other two provinces as well? We'll keep a track of that, but I have to leave it at that. I thank you all for joining us here on this broadcast. We are shifting focus now to the Israel-Hamas conflict that we've seen, and it's been close to 7 weeks now since the terror attack on Israel that killed thousands of people. This happened on the 7th of October. What we see now is perhaps the first signs of truce between Israel and Hamas. A deal of ceasefire has been approved, has been reached. 50 women and children who were held hostages are going to be freed by Hamas. This, of course, is in return for the 150 women and Palestinian members who are under the age of 19 that are held in Israeli jails be released. There is going to be a 4-day halt in military operations in Gaza. We are going to be seeing freeing of hostages. It was initially envisioned to begin today, but that has already hit a roadblock, a mini hiccup, if some would call it that. The head of Israel's National Security Council said that the release would begin not before tomorrow, given the fragility of the entire pact with Hamas. Officials from Qatar were the ones who mediated this deal between Israel and Hamas. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, said that the U.S. President Joe Biden had also helped reach out and reach this agreement, so that it included more hostages being freed and fewer concessions that were given by the Israeli side. So what exactly is this truce? What exactly is this exchange that the two parties have entered in? Let's take a look. Hamas has agreed to release 50 Israeli citizens that were taken hostage from Israel from the music festival on the 7th of October. They are going to be doing this in batches. 12 to 15 Israeli citizens are going to be freed per day. It is going to go on for 4 days in that manner. What do they want in return? They want Israel to ensure that 150 Palestinians that are held as prisoners in jails across Israel have to be freed. They are mainly those who are under the age of 19 and women. This can go beyond the 4-day truce if Israel wants to, is what Hamas had said. So how exactly is this release going to take place as far as the hostages are concerned? It's a complicated one. It's not an easy affair. Hamas is going to be releasing hostages that are believed to be on the Gaza Strip inside these tunnels that IDF has been unearthing. That's what the Israel government believes. They are then going to be handed over to the Red Cross first. The Israeli Defense Forces are then going to take over. They are going to be meeting with these hostages that have been freed. There are medical tests that are going to be conducted on them. This is going to happen at isolated centers that have been set up by the Israeli Defense Forces. They're then going to be reunited with their families at those particular medical centers themselves. There's possibly going to be a questioning of these hostages, so where they were, what exactly happened, if there are any insight that could come to the fore as far as Hamas's operations are concerned. Then there is going to be a debriefing, and only then they are going to be released to go home to Israel or perhaps outside from where they came in from. Let's take a look now at before we get you more details of what exactly has been happening as far as the IDF's ground offensive is concerned, we have a very special guest joining us here on this broadcast. Neveist is joining us. He is a coordinator ex-Shin Bet. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. You know, we've been talking about this truce, this deal that has been entered into by Hamas and Israel. They're releasing hostages, or so they say. It's already seen a delay, though, at least a 24-hour one for that. Do you think, or do you have confidence that Hamas will keep their end of the bargain?
I'm not confident, because we know that Hamas is trying now to play the cards, and the only cards they have in Gaza are actually the hostages. So they are trying to buy time. Time right now is the most important thing they need to gain. I'm not surprised that it takes time. IDF, the military, the Minister of Defense, Gallant, announced that Israel will keep fighting in Gaza until we'll understand that there is a deal. But I think that Hamas understand what's going on in Israel, socially what's going on, because there is a lot of tension in Israel regarding the hostages and the return of children and women from Gaza back to Israel. And I can tell you sincerely that most of us, all the people of Israel, are holding their breath, expecting them to return.
But where do you think, sir, these hostages have been kept? You know, it's been 47 days since we saw the attack. And if I may say so, Hamas has had an upper hand as far as the whereabouts of these hostages are concerned. The world is completely clueless.
in the Gaza Strip, what we see on the top of Gaza Strip, the buildings, the cities, is only a part of the story. The real story is the underneath city that they built during the years underneath the Gaza Strip. And they have thousands of kilometers of tunnels underneath Gaza. Gaza is built on limestone, so it's very easy to dig tunnels, rooms, bunkers inside the limestone. And it is very, very hard. I'm saying from the intelligence point of view, to bring vivid, actual intelligence while they can move the hostages back and forth all the time. It's very, very hard to get the information about it.
But this exchange is coming, many would say, at a high cost. Palestinian prisoners are being freed in exchange of these hostages. Do you think that could actually arm the Hamas further? This war would be prolonged even further?
From my point of view, right now, the most important goal of Israel is bringing back the people that were kidnapped into Gaza and actually were abandoned by the state of Israel, the government, military, when they were kidnapped into Gaza. Bringing them into Gaza and making them hostages is a war crime. But this is what happened. I say this is the cruel, ugly reality that we're living in. The state of Israel has a very strong obligation to bring them back. We had many years since the creation, the foundation of Hamas in 1987 until now to fight Hamas and destroy their military abilities and other terrorist abilities. Israel didn't do it. I don't think that there is any necessity to finish the work now. First, we need to bring them back, and this means that we will need to pay. The price is very high because, Yahya Sinwar, maybe people don't realize, Yahya Sinwar was a prisoner in the Israeli prison. He was released during the last agreement when one soldier, kidnapped soldier, Gilad Shalit, was released for the exchange of thousands of prisoners, many of them murderers, people that committed very hard terror attacks, including Yahya Sinwar. So we know today, after the agreement, that those people, by the way, Yahya Sinwar, when he was released, he signed papers that he will not go back to terrorism. I don't think that anybody expected that he will stand for this promise. But anyway, we know what is the price, and yet the obligation, the unwritten contract between the state of Israel and the people that lived in southern Israel is that Israel should keep them safe and bring them back home, even if we pay high price. And later, when all the hostages will come back, then we have enough time to fight Hamas, destroy Hamas. And from my point of view, because of this October 7th massacre, all the members of Hamas, the known members in our list, in the Shin Bet, in the Secret Service of Israel, should pay a very high price for being members of Hamas.
Sure, but like you admitted, sir, that there is a high price. So are you saying that Israel does have a plan B to fight the repercussions of this deal, if there are any?
Yeah, and I think that the Chief of Staff, head of the Israel Secret Service and the Minister of Defense said to the government and to the cabinet that Israel and the military are prepared to stay in Gaza, to wait during the ceasefire, and then when they'll get the order to go back to fight, the military knows how to do it, and this is what will happen, and I hope that the deal will be successful.
That's really what people around the world are also hoping. But we are also seeing the ground offensive of the IDF that is also escalating even as we speak. But many people are saying that the kind of evidence that the IDF is putting out, the kind of stockpile that we're seeing under these tunnels, inside these tunnels, under the hospitals, they're all planted. How do you respond to that? I
respond that on October 7th, Hamas decided to enter Israel, kill women, children, elderly, kidnap people, rape and kill young women inside Israel, and they are responsible for the retaliation. The question where a Kalashnikov was found, was it inside the tunnel of the Shifa hospital or somewhere else? And by the way, I truly believe the IDF spokesman, okay? I'm not saying that what they claim is true, but I'm just saying it's not important. What important is what happened on October 7, and the fact that Yahya Sinwar and the leadership of Hamas decided to destroy Gaza because they knew what will be the outcome of their catastrophic behavior in Israel. We didn't ask for this war. Israel is not perfect, and for me as an Israeli citizen for almost 10 years I have criticism about my government, but this doesn't mean that they have the right to enter Israel, to kill people, to do whatever they did against civilians. And you know, they say we kill young Jew babies because they are soldiers. They are soldiers because they will grow up and join the Israeli army, so we need to kill them when they are young. This is how they see it. And now they are talking about where we found the Kalashnikov. It's really not important.
Sure, but there has been collateral damage, and an obvious one at that, on both sides. Children have been killed on both sides, and we're seeing those pictures coming out of hospitals from Gaza as well. Do you think, in your opinion, that perhaps Israel could have approached this offensive a little bit differently?
Yes, I see the pictures. I'm concerned about the pictures. I'm not happy to see young Palestinian children that get killed or hurt during the war. Children are children. I don't ask when I see a baby that a dead baby. I don't ask if whether he's a Jew, Palestinian, or something else. Baby is a baby. And I'm concerned about it, and I know that Israel is obliged to the international law, and I hope that this is the way Israel will keep the war. It's very, very complicated in Gaza. Gaza is an extremely crowded area, and yet we have an obligation, and we need to say it out loud, to keep civilians safe. We know that Hamas is using civilians as a shield, defense shield. They bring them to places to keep them around them. And yet, you know, during the Second Intifada, I was in charge of Ramallah area. We had terrible terror attacks coming from Ramallah, and we were about to assassinate one of the leaders of those attacks. And one day we have operational situation where we had the ability to assassinate him. And we gave actually the order, we gave the intelligence and the order to assassinate him. And the pilot, the chopper pilot, combat, he said, I'm not going to do it. And we asked why, and he said, because you don't see from your angle that there is a group of children walking beside him. And we didn't kill him knowing that this guy is about to carry out more terror attacks. This is, from my point of view, the way we need to handle the situation. We will fight Hamas. We need to be cruel fighting Hamas, but we need to be merciful towards the civilians of Gaza. We need to be obliged to the international law, and I hope that this is the way, and I'm sure that this is the way the Israeli military is behaving.
You spoke about eliminating Hamas altogether, but you know, as far as eliminating Hamas is concerned, it's not really just the fighters that the IDF is fighting in the Gaza Strip. The real leadership is overseas. They're not even there. They're quite comfortable there. How do you then think that that can be rooted out? And what, in your opinion, should be or would be Israel's strategy to get to the leadership of Hamas?
You know, after the Munich massacre during the Olympic Games, Israel waited and then started to assassinate the people that were behind the massacre of our team, sport team, to the Olympics. In Lebanon, in Europe, and whenever. As I said before, we have a humanitarian problem with the hostages. We need to finish this problem. We have enough time later on to bring them to justice. And I'm sure that Israel will do it. It's not the time to talk about it, but I hope that the way Israel behaved after the Munich massacre, this is the way Israel will behave in the future towards the leaders of Hamas in Qatar, in Lebanon, in Iran, and wherever, in Turkey, and wherever.
Sure, we're still in the midst of this fight against terror. So many perhaps would say this is not really the time to talk about this. But I still want to ask you this. There are questions that are abound as far as the failure of intelligence agencies in Israel is concerned. How did Israel not see this coming?
Yeah, actually, this is the best time to ask it. This is maybe the biggest intelligence failure, political failure of the state of Israel. It's very hard even now to understand what happened. No doubt that this is a catastrophic failure of the intelligence, the Shin Bet, and the military intelligence. This is catastrophic failure among the military that was supposed to be on the border and keep the different places safe. And this is what Netanyahu did by his terrible policy. He thought that he will pour money into Gaza and buy a quiet time because they get money. This is not the way you handle terrorism. You know, it's ironic that Netanyahu actually was published by publishing a book, How to Defeat Terrorism. But it seems that maybe he didn't read his own book, because you don't defeat terrorism by sending billions of dollars through Qatar into the terroristic entity.
So you think there are definite lessons to be learned here as far as Israel is concerned, so that history does not repeat itself?
No doubt, and you know, again, ironically, when the massacre happened, we were talking about 50 years to the 73, what we call Yom Kippur War against Egypt. This was a big surprise, the 73 war, but it's a smaller surprise when you compare it to the October 7th massacre. And it seems like after 50 years, we didn't learn the lesson of 73 war, and I hope that this time, with a very high price of people that got killed, more than 1,300 people that were murdered and 240 people that were kidnapped, we will learn this time the needed lesson.
We really do hope so, and we really do hope that the violence ends for the sake of not just the two parties involved there, but for the rest of the world as well. West Asia is on the brink as far as this conflict goes. We do hope that the hostages are freed soon enough as well. But sir, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. With that, it's wrapped from me. Time for a quick break. Back in just a few minutes.
Hello, Moto.
As far as the rescue operations that are underway in Uttarkashi are concerned, and we have Anshul Singh with us from the ground. Anshul, also has any communication been established with the workers recently?
So yes, communication has been established. We have been reporting on this for the last 2 days, how communication has already been established, be it the video or the audio communication that has already been established. In fact, the doctors have also spoken to each and every person who is stuck inside, making sure that mental and physical health remains intact, and that is a good thing that all of them are absolutely safe. Even if people had complained of anything, they have been given the requisite medicines as well. So yes, the situation inside the tunnel is absolutely safe. The people inside the tunnel are absolutely safe. There is constant communication that is happening. In fact, the communication has been happening from day one itself. We have been reporting from over here from the last 11 days that how communication channels have already been established. So yes, the only thing that is now left, we are in the last leg of this rescue operation, and we are expecting that within the next few hours we can get that breakthrough that we have been waiting to see for the last 11 days now.
And now we get you the latest update from Uttarkashi, where the rescue operation is on. Now what we're learning is that 45-meter has been drilled through and 15-meter remains to be drilled to rescue the workers who are stranded inside the tunnel. Remember, 41 workers have been stranded since November 12th. And the rescue operation is on. The operation is in the final stage, and what we are learning is that 45-meter of the tunnel has been drilled through and 15-meter remains to be drilled. So in total 60-meter needed to be drilled, out of which 45-meter has already been drilled through and 15-meter still remains to be drilled to rescue the 41 stranded workers. We have CNN News 18's Anshul Singh joining us from the ground, getting us all the latest details. Anshul, what is the current situation, and how much more time can we expect it to take for the workers to be out of the tunnel?
Well, that is a million-dollar question. That is a question that everyone is asking. How much more time will it take for the people to finally come out of the tunnel in which they have been trapped for the last 12 days now? Now remember, after the 45-meter mark was breached by the rescuers, there was a surprise press conference that happened in which the rescuers were very, very confident that they will be able to get through towards the other side of the debris and make sure that all these people are taken out in the next 15 hours. That is, it was expected that by midnight, each and every person would be taken out safely. But yes, the last hurdle, in the last step, the last hurdle has come up. It seems there are at least 4 to 5 metal pieces that have now been encountered by the rescuers in the tunneling operation. And remember, these are 800 millimeter pipes through which this entire operation is now being carried out. NDRF team has been sent inside the 800 millimeter pipe with hydraulic cutters, and through those hydraulic cutters, the metal is being tried to cut, and there has been very little to no success that the rescuers have been able to find in that, and that is the reason why we are seeing that the drilling process has stopped at almost 45 meters. What the rescuers expect that within the once the metal is cut through, then they will be able to drill in at least 2 pipes, which means that from anywhere from 10 to 12 meters is left for them to breach that entire debris. So yes, the next few hours are going to be interesting. But yes, the NDRF team since late last evening have been trying to cut through that steel pipes and steel rods that they have encountered. But yes, that is proving to be a big task, because you can imagine that it is just an 800 millimeter diameter pipe, and if you convert it to feet, it's just 2.7 feet in diameter, and in that a person has to crawl through with machines and then go ahead and try to cut those heavy metal sheets. And as they are cutting it, there are fumes that comes out of it. There is fire that comes out of it, and hence you can imagine how challenging is this task at this point in time. And that is the reason why we are seeing that it has been almost 8 hours that this entire operation of cutting through that metal sheet is ongoing at this point in time. When will they get success? That is a big question mark. But yes, the rescuers are positive that by today they will be able to make that final step and make sure that all these people are taken out at safety.
Right, Anshul. Also, the nation is praying for the safety of the 41 workers, and we're right now getting you the latest visuals from Uttarkashi. Well, Anshul, if you could also shed some light on the major obstacles for the rescue teams right now.
So yes, there are several major obstacles for the rescue team. As I mentioned, that there is an 800 millimeter pipe, and you can imagine 2.7 feet in diameter, which is 2.7 feet in diameter, and in that, a person from the NDRF has to go inside that with hydraulic cutters and try to go ahead and cut through the heavy metal pipes that have been encountered by the rescuers at this point in time. So until and unless that is cut through, there is no way out for the workers at this point in time. Because remember, the other plans that were in place, the work on those plans had stopped because the rescuers felt that they have come very, very close to their destination, and hence the other plans were put on a temporary halt. Also, the kind of sector activities that were happening because of the other plans.
That I welcome the Honorable Vice President to this unique G20, the Indian Navy Quiz 2023. Sir, your presence here signifies Bharat's commitment to engage positively with the young and dynamic minds from across the oceans. Many would ask, how is it that the Indian Navy, a profession of arms, is conducting an international quiz competition? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the answer lies in the core element of our force, which is a warship. When you look at a naval warship, it is not merely about the weapons or sensors it has or the water it displaces. It is about the flag it carries and what it represents. When at sea, a warship is our sovereign territory and an extension of Bharat in its true sense. On a warship, you will find Indians from every cross-section of our society, from every district, region, state of our country, all gelled into one strong team with a singular aim to keep our sacred Tiranga flying high. So to my mind, there could be no better example of Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat. And as a corollary, whenever a naval warship visits a foreign port, Bharat actually reaches its shores. So our ships not only receive citizens of the host nation, but also we step out to engage with the community through welfare measures such as medical camps and other outreach programs. The friends from foreign countries who come on board our ships, they get to taste our local delicacies. They get to see Bhangra as well as Kalaripaito. They get to see the indigenous technologies and capabilities. They get to hear peppy Bollywood numbers as well as Kulavari Di. They get to meet Ladakis, Haryanvis, Andhrites, Mizos, and most importantly, they get to experience our unity amidst diversity, as well as a truly inclusive outlook for the whole world. So our warships amplify and echo this thought every time we take to the seas, forging friendships across the oceans. It is this spirit of embracing differences and imbuing cohesion that makes Bharat special. So not surprisingly, when given the onerous responsibility of G20 presidency, Bharat chose to drive conversations based on our civilizational ethos of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. So the future, ladies and gentlemen, is here in front of us, the youth. Therefore, when it came to engaging with young and impressionable minds from across the world as a service, we thought of taking it forward, given the coherence in our outlook when operating at sea. So Bharat Sarkar and the G20 Secretariat found it fitting to trust us with this unique responsibility to conduct this equally unique international quiz competition. So it gives me immense pleasure to inform the Honorable Vice President, not only has this event garnered remarkable response, it has ignited imaginations of thousands of students across 23 nations. Those who qualified have made the journey across the oceans to be here with us at this iconic Kartavya Path. And even those who could not are virtually with us through the bits and bytes of internet data, which incidentally also flows through submarine cables across the seas. Therefore, the G20 ThinkU is indeed a remarkable blend. It comprehensively conveys Bharat's outlook. There is only one earth which makes us one big family that is destined
Good evening, welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. So it started with Rahul Gandhi calling the Prime Minister a panoti for bringing bad luck to the Indian cricket team in the World Cup finals. Now Mamata Banerjee has followed that up with the term papi or sinner. She said at a rally today that India was winning all the matches in the Cricket World Cup until papis or sinners decided to watch the match. Now, it's not like former Prime Ministers have not watched India matches in the past, and it's not like we won all of those matches either. But no one referred to them as papi or panoti. Similarly, we've had foul language from both sides, from different sides of the political spectrum in the past as well. From the infamous Maut Ka Saudagar to Jersey cow. But this is 2023. Why should our politics of this day and age stoop so low and use almost gutter level language to take political potshots? And it's not just the opposition, but the ruling party too seems to have used this in the past. But is it time now for a new kind of vocabulary in our politics, where these personal jibes, which have nothing to do with politics or policy, should not be dominating the election campaign?